Hi, I'm Christine. I'm a life coach and counselor, and today I want to share with you 4 steps for dealing with fear and kicking it in the arse. So the first thing I'd like to do is brainstorm with you some really juicy fears so that you have at least one in mind as I go through these 4 steps. So some really good examples are being afraid of being rejected, being afraid of being hurt in a relationship, maybe being afraid of flying or public speaking. Just think of one of the things that really freaks you out and hold that thought in your mind as I go through these 4 steps so you can think about how to apply it in your life. So the first step is to get really conscious of your fear. And the reason this is important is because only you are aware of it. Only you have the thought and the feeling inside that nobody else can see unless you share it with somebody else or unless they can observe it in your actions. So ultimately, you are accountable for noticing your fear and dealing with it. So that's why it's really important to be honest about it. And at this stage, it's also helpful to assign a number to how much fear or anxiety you feel. I recommend using a scale from 1 to 10 since it's just very short and sweet. 1 through 10, pretty easy. And this will give you a baseline as you move through these steps so you can see how you're doing and kind of where you are along the continuum. The second step is to notice how you respond to your fear. I've given it a lot of thought and I've come up with 4 basic ways that most of us respond to fear that don't really work over the long term. They're really good short-term fixer-uppers. Basically, what they do is they make us feel better when we're feeling really uncomfortable and really freaked out in the short term. But they kind of set up an addictive cycle. So we end up getting all amped up and maybe a bit of an adrenaline rush and just really freaked out about something, and we use these 4 strategies to kind of, dampen ourselves down, but then we just get amped up again later when we get exposed to our fear, and that's why they really don't work. Because ultimately what we want is to create a feeling of boredom around our fear. So I'm going to share with you what those 4 things are. The first one is we avoid the things that we're afraid of. You have a thought and you try to push it out of your mind, or you are exposed to something in your environment that really scares you and you move away from it. That's an example of avoidance. Another one is asking for reassurance. That could be trying to reassure yourself that everything's going to be okay when you're not really sure, or asking other people around you, what do you think? If you're in a situation that really makes you uncomfortable and scared, and you're not sure what's going to happen, asking other people, what do you think? Over and over again could be a strategy to make yourself feel better, but it doesn't really solve the problem because the truth is you'd never really know the answer about whether your fear can really hurt you or what's going to happen. The third thing that we do sometimes is we try to force ourselves to relax. And that could be just trying to meditate or take a warm bath when you really feel very tense and stressed about something that's bothering you and making you scared. And if you're not that freaked out, this might actually work. But depending on how much fear you really are dealing with, this might be completely counterproductive because you're basically trying to force yourself to relax when you're really feeling a great deal of anxiety and fear. So that doesn't work. Another thing that we often do is try to self-medicate with drugs or alcohol, and that does work in the short term. It kind of gives us an escape from the feeling, but then when they wear off, we feel the anxiety and the fear again. So my solution is step 3, which is to expose yourself to your fear. And what this does is when you really, step into facing your fear and feeling all of that anxiety and discomfort come up, you will eventually start to get bored of your fear. And it's actually harder at first. When you try this, you will feel more intensity and more discomfort initially, and that's completely normal. And in fact, this is a good time to rate yourself from a scale on 1 to 10 about how much fear and discomfort you're feeling and compare that to what you felt initially in relation to your fear. It really should be higher. That's normal. So there's a couple of different things you can do to expose yourself to your fear. One is you can just get out there and take action and do something that really scares you. So if you're afraid of public speaking, it could be, booking a gig to speak publicly or approach somebody that you don't know that well. Just getting out there and doing it. Now, if it's something that you can't do, like maybe if you're afraid of flying, it's just not realistic right now to book a flight, you can imagine it. And you can get really creative with that too. You can do a visualization. You can also do what I call creating a horror story. And this can be kind of fun. I mean, it's actually really scary, but you can make it fun. And you can do that by writing a story about your worst case scenario happening. So if you're afraid of public speaking, you could write a story about how you are about to speak in front of thousands of people. Some of them may be, famous or celebrities or really influential people that you want to impress and that you want to like you. And you can imagine that, right before you go up on stage to speak, you spill something on yourself and it's too late. You don't have time to, wash out the stain. And then you get up on stage and you just forget what you're going to say, and maybe you have a PowerPoint slide or something and it's just not working and you have to improv, but you're not really doing so well at that and people just start leaving, and maybe there's like 5 people left by the end of your speech and they're not the ones that you were hoping to impress, and maybe they're not even enjoying your speech, they're booing you. So it's like the worst possible speech that you can imagine, and just writing that down in detail and reading it over and over again, eventually you're going to get bored. I mean, at first it's going to be scary and you're going to feel worse when you read it, but eventually it's going to become just this really boring story that you've heard so many times, and it's just not going to give you that same amped up adrenaline feeling of discomfort. So that's one way you can do it. You can also record yourself reading the story and listen to it over and over again. So that's a way that you can expose yourself to it, or just look for things in your environment that remind you of what you're afraid of and allow yourself to experience them. So the 4th step to the process is to just let it go. When you're exposing yourself to your fear, you're going to be in the depths of feeling this emotion, this discomfort. And you might be tempted to start worrying, going through a mental loop while you're feeling the physical sensations of fear. And that's one thing you don't want to do. And not because you're avoiding, but just because you want to let it go. And while you're feeling it, you want to just move on to other things, thinking about other things, doing other things. And over time, you're going to start to feel that number on a scale of 1 to 10 go down. And it's going to be a smaller number, and you're not going to have the same reaction anymore. So let's say that your number initially is like a 7 on a scale from 1 to 10. It might go up to a 9 when you're exposing yourself to your fear. And by the time you've felt it long enough and you're starting to let it go, it could go down to like maybe a 2. And this process could take anywhere from a few days to a few months, depending on how much fear you have built around something in particular. But these are my 4 steps for dealing with fear, and I'm somebody who's dealt with a lot of anxiety in my life, and these have definitely worked for me. So if you like this video, like it and share it with somebody that you think will benefit from it. If you'd like to stay connected, you can sign up for my newsletter at coachingwithchristina.com. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Bye!